Hi everyone, it's Mark Merrill with Firm. Violations of treason are not nice. Period. Now today, folks, we're referring to the emails we've encountered and received over a period of a few days. But some that we're going to focus on today deal with detailed content about a Supreme Court ruling that would change the U.S. Department of Education's so-called special standards for sexual orientation and gender-affirming students. Also, Title 33, under the heading Advocating Overthrow of the U.S. Government, subsection 2385, is a very specific, detailed description of the types of actions, violence, and unconstitutional threats against American citizens by any organization. Not necessarily limited to federal organizations, but all organizations that willfully intend to act violently against the United States population in total. We'll get to some information on that first, folks, but what we're going to deal with right off is what you see before you, and maybe you've seen it before, is just a section of the beginnings of the Declaration of Independence. You can find it right here, and we'll put it up again in our comments section afterwards. constitution.congress.gov/browse/essay/amendment 25. Yeah, we are intending for you to look that one up in regard to what's going on with Joe Biden ever since the ramshackle and awful debate, if you want to call it that. It's the worst thing in United States history as far as I'm concerned. But as far as the Declaration, folks, I always refer to paragraph 2, you may recall by now. All of our rights under God, by the way, all people are created equal. It says that all men are created equal at the time that it was written. And we are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, among those life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And to secure those rights, we're skipping through down to the area that refers to today's program, violations of treason and tyranny. Whenever a form of government becomes destructive of those ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness, as we just read. Prudence will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms of which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, the people, it is their duty, the people, to throw off such government. That's it, folks. That's what we're getting at today here on Firm. Now, this particular article that we're talking about, unfortunately, was reported by USA Today newspaper back quite a few days ago. As a matter of fact, it was published by one of their writers, Zachary Shermelli, on July 10th, 2024. It is titled, "The Supreme Court Curbed Federal Oversight of Schools. It's a Big Deal." 8 current and former staffers at the U.S. Department of Education expressed dismay, oh, poor them, over a recent Supreme Court decision they fear will blunt major regulations affecting K-12 schools and colleges. The U.S. Department of Education so far, let's say over the last 5 to 6 years, which almost entangles the tail end of the Obama second administration, the DOE has been able to intervene to some degree to incur special rights for certain gender-affirming students, but a Supreme Court decision handed down reined in the agency's power to help everyday people, and the news came as important deadlines loom for schools to implement key regulations, many of which now stand on shakier legal ground. 3 current and former Education Department staffers, some of whom were not authorized to speak publicly, told this reporter at USA Today that they were dismayed by the ruling, which they fear will blunt the agency's ability to oversee the American education system. A former policy advisor on higher education in the DOE at the White House, Biden's White House, by the way, really nervous about what it means. Education policy in the United States is primarily hammered out by state and local governments. When it comes to taking federal action, including to keep LGBTQ students safe, she says, textbook costs down and student loan debt under control, Congress intended. Congress never gets anything done fast. I don't care what era we're in. But they're usually slow to pass new regulations. Duh. The main federal law overseeing colleges hasn't been comprehensively reauthored or reauthorized since 2008. The Supreme Court has curbed the power of federal regulators, overturning a 40-year precedent. On the heels of a different verdict that could preclude some agencies from imposing fines, justices dramatically recast the balance of the government power away from the executive branch, thank God. Officials immediately began panicking that the DOE might lose some of its capacity to address real-life problems through regulation. Even before the decree was handed down, lower court judges in several states over the past several weeks, we're going back into June here, folks, were separately halting key education department policies, including rules affecting student loan borrowers, LGBTQ students, and sexual assault survivors. The NEA, one of the largest unions for educators, warned, oh no, we're going to get a tongue lashing from these woke teachers now and administrators. They warned that students nationwide would, quote, pay the price for the demise of the Chevron deference. Meanwhile, conservatives and for-profit schools have rejoiced at the ruling, which they consider a long overdue blow to big government. Supporters of the verdict included Republicans in Congress and argued federal regulators have become too powerful. They praised the Supreme Court for transferring more authority to the judicial branch to interpret vague laws. The DOE declined to comment directly, but Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre scolded the Supreme Court for yet another deeply troubling decision that takes our country backwards. Screw you, KJP. Shut up. You don't represent the people of this country. You never have and you never will. Ladies and gentlemen, that press secretary lives, breathes, dies, goes to the bathroom, and licks the boots of LGBTQ, and glad she could give a damn about the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights as they were written. How the ruling affects schools will depend largely on how judges handle forthcoming legal challenges. If the federal judiciary recent decisions are a harbinger of what's to come, the Biden administration agenda for American schools could be destroyed. One particular LGBTQ student said his standards and his life is on the line. Please. Will any of these people stop being dramatic, do you think? Because the Biden administration he was hoping for, among many others, who are barely over 1 million in this country, folks, very small percentage of screamers, minorities, who want special rights. He was hoping the Biden administration reversing Trump-era rules while pushing to codify protections or special rights that would prevent discrimination against LGBTQ students like him. Didn't happen. So that's, ladies and gentlemen, where we are as far as that goes. And you know what? We need to keep this country intact. And that's all there is to it. This has to rule when it comes to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence as we just reviewed. Now, getting on to treason and tyranny. Violations of treason and tyranny that have occurred in this country over the last 4 to 5 years, maybe longer by now, come under Title 18, Part 1, Chapter 115, subsection 2385. Why is that important? We're about to go over it, folks. According to the Cornell Law School, which is law.cornell.edu, whoever knowingly or willfully advocates, abets, advises, or teaches the duty, necessity, desirability, or propriety of overthrowing or destroying the government of the United States or the government of any state, territory, district, or possession thereof, or the government of any political subdivision herein by force or violence, or by the assassination of any officer of any such government, or whoever with intent to cause the overthrow or destruction of any such government, prints, publishes, edits, issues, circulates, sells, distributes, or publicly displays, the media, the mass media, the mainstream crooked media, displays any written or printed matter advocating, advising, or teaching the propriety of overthrowing or destroying any government in the United States by force or violence, or whoever organizes or helps to attempt to organize any society, group, or assembly of persons who teach, advocate, or encourage the overthrow of or destruction of a government by force or violence, or becomes or is a member of, wink, wink, or affiliates with any such society, group, or assembly of persons knowing the purposes thereof, shall be fined. This is the law, folks. Under tyranny and treason. Shall be fined under this Title 18, Part 1, Chapter 115. Fined or imprisoned not more than 20 years, or both, and shall be ineligible for employment by the United States or any department or agency thereof for the 5 years next following the conviction. Now, if 2 or more persons conspire to commit any offense named in that section, each shall be fined under that title, or imprisoned not more than 20 years, or both, and shall be ineligible for employment by the United States or any department or agency thereof for the 5 years next following that conviction. Terms, folks. Organizes and organize with respect to any society, group, or assembly of persons include the recruiting as well of new members the forming of new units, and the regrouping or expansion of existing clubs, classes, and other units of such society, group, or assembly of persons. You know what? You're all in big friggin' trouble. Media, LGBTQ, grandmothers for reproductive rights, among others. It's not a pretty picture. It's about to get worse for you. That's why this is what you should have gone by. Just figured it out under common sense, which is in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence. Period. End of statement. No arguing. Whether you want to or not, it's not up for discussion. Meantime, folks, always check in with us at rumble.com/fairnessmedia1 for all podcasts. 24 hours a day also at Twitter, YouTube, and also fairnessinreportingmedia@gmail.com. We would love to have your comments and ideas and suggestions for topics as well. Once again, as always, peace and strength and hope. Prayers for our country.